Hey guys, it's Jen Gregson. I am in hotel quarantine in my pajamas, but ready to chat all things Tokyo and beyond.
G'day guys, it's Tiernan here, back on the Physical Performance Show, speaking about my Tokyo Olympics experience this year. Hope you enjoy.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to this bonus episode of the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Precision Hydration's all-new fuel range and Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultations. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. And of course, we do this across a range of our different episodes: interest editions, featured performers, coaches' corners, expert editions, catch-up episodes, and of course, every now and then, a special bonus episode. And that is exactly what we're sharing with you today. We are hot off the heels of the Tokyo 2020/2021 Olympic Games, and amongst all of the incredible performances from athletes of all nations, and of course, Australia's very own, there are always displays of true grit through adversity. And that is what we wanted to bring to you today on this bonus episode, that is showcasing the grit and willpower of two of our Australian athletics team members, Genevieve Gregson, LaCaze, and Tiernan. Now, most of us will have seen both of these athletes endure Olympic performances that they did not expect. With Genevieve Gregson on the final water hurdle of the 3,000 metre steeplechase succumbing to a ruptured Achilles, who can forget the images of Jen on the ground reaching back for what she immediately knew was a ruptured Achilles? It was heartbreaking for everyone watching on. Later that evening, as Jen sat in the medical room with a splint on her leg, she posted to social media, "I'm heartbroken and don't have the words right now to respond to you all, but in short, ruptured Achilles on the last water jump. Happy birthday, me. Thank you for the support and messages. I'll try to respond in time. For now, I need to mend my heart, soul, and Achilles." And at the time of catching up with Jen, she was just several days post Achilles tendon repair, sitting in managed isolation and quarantine, and the emotions are still very raw, as you'll hear. Now, Jen featured way back on episode 30 in November 2016, just after her successful Rio Olympic Games appearance, running in the final of the 3,000 metre steeplechase and also the 5,000 metre events. So you'll hear from Jen shortly, and in addition to Jen's contribution to this bonus episode, you'll also hear from Aussie hero Teirnan, who with just 150 metres left to run in the men's 10,000 metre track final, fell and valiantly picked himself up several times to get across that finish line. Now, the fall was out of absolute exhaustion, with possibly some effects from the heat. And just like Jen, Pat featured many years ago on the Physical Performance Show back in January of 2017, episode 41. And since that time, as you'll hear Pat outline, the 10,000 metre race has been one of great highs and great lows. And just like Jen, you'll hear Pat, who himself at the time of recording was in hotel quarantine in Brisbane, reflect on the disappointment of getting so close to what would have been a career best performance with a certain top 10 finish in the 10,000 metre final before things didn't go to plan. As you know, this show is about the highs, lows and learnings of physical performance, and I trust and know from both Genevieve Gregson and Tiernan's sharings today, you'll be both moved and inspired to continue pursuing your own physical best performance. So here are my conversations with Australian athletics legends Genevieve Gregson and Tiernan.
Now we're getting a shot of Jen here, so that's the last water jump.
I think she's hurt her calf. She's okay. She's getting into a wheelchair, but I think she's just hurt her calf, and she's up and about. She's speaking to the medical team, but she's hurt the lower leg.
Jen Gregson, nee LaCaze, welcome back to the Physical Performance Show. It has been nearly 5 years. The last time you appeared was on episode 30. Your episode will be circa episode in the 280s. So it's been nearly 5 years. And what hasn't happened in that time?
I guess, the last time I was here was straight after Rio Olympics. I can remember it fondly, talking about my experience. I think I shared a story that I had with Eloise from the 5K, and 5 years has passed and so much has happened, good and bad, obviously, but it's been a hell of a ride since then.
You're married now, obviously, to Ryan, who is right at the moment in hotel quarantine with you, who you did say has been a terrific help to you at the moment, of course, and I think most people probably saw that very moving video of the first embrace when Ryan flew to meet you in Singapore.
Yeah. No, he's been great. We've actually said several times over the last week, I don't know what I'd be doing if he wasn't here right now. Just making little things so much easier for me. I'm literally bedridden right now, so something as simple as filling up my drink bottle is a task. And he is attending to me very well. He thinks that he has a future in nursing, so we'll see how long this lasts. But he says it's payback because I'm normally the one that runs the daily household chores. So he's definitely giving me a good payback and waiting on me hand and foot. But it was tough, obviously, being in Tokyo without him. So meeting him in Singapore was a huge sigh of relief for me, because I'd say from that moment on, we've definitely tackled on everything that we've got ahead of us, and it's definitely made me feel a lot more relieved with what my year's going to look like.
Gosh, well, I mean, Jen, the world saw what happened in Tokyo in the 3,000 metre steeple final on the last water jump, I should say there. I think therapists probably had a sense straight away what may have happened, but no one really wanted to acknowledge that initially. It would be like, but take us through what happened, race-wise and then with the injury.
Yeah, well, I'll give everyone a little bit of context, which is, what Ryan had obviously going in, because he knew exactly what happened as soon as I went down. But, I mean, since Rio, really, I had such a massive year in 2016. I think I did 8 5Ks and maybe 10 steeples. It was just a lot of racing and spikes, and I slowly developed what physios call Haglund's deformity on my left heel, which just means, the bone grows from the heel and starts to fray on the Achilles. You start getting bursitis, and it's just kind of this part of your heel that just has about 3 ongoing issues that gradually get flared up more and more as you continue to train. And this is something that I've known, since Rio, and I've managed my training to get by. It was kind of part of my reality. I reduced my training load. I took out things like running up hills, and I tried not to change shoes too much. I stayed out of spikes unless I was racing, have heel raises in all my shoes. So this has been an injury that I've had for so long in my left foot. And unfortunately, with my last few races in July, I raced my last one in Monaco Diamond League, where I did a season's best and was definitely looking like I was ready to re-break my Australian record in some races to come. I flared up my left foot probably just a little bit too much, probably to a point of no return, because I went to continue training back at St. Moritz at altitude and was just compensating that little bit too much. My right leg is my dominant leg. It's my strong, reliable leg. It's the one that never gets injured and really just carries me through all my training when the left's playing up. But I noticed on a long run a few days after my race that, my right one kind of twinged a little bit. And I saw a physio straight away, and I had a week off just to be safe. I thought that was even overkill, having a week off, but I just knew how good I was at cross training, and I thought, this is the Olympics, we got to play it safe. And so when I went into the village, I had all the medical team well aware of my situation. They know my history with my left Achilles, and they'd been informed about my right being a little off over the last few weeks, but we actually got my right Achilles into a great place, to a point where we actually labelled it as fully recovered. I felt strong on it. I knew that I could water jump on it if I had to. And I think going into that heat, my first round, that was really nerve-wracking for me because I thought this is 50-50 whether my foot is ready to go. And people that don't know me probably think, you know, that I ran well enough to make the final and that was great. But deep down, like my close-knit group knew that, I mean, I was lucky to get through to that final because I didn't run like myself. I was compensating. I was, you know, stressed. I was a bit off, but was lucky enough to scrape through to the final. So going into the final, I actually was a little more confident because I'm like, the hard part's done. I've done the heat. I've made it through. My Achilles seemed to pull up well. My right one anyway. My left one was obviously a bit sore, as it always is. But yeah, when I went out onto the track, I just remember kind of thinking, here goes nothing. You know, I've got this far. I'm sure I'll be fine. You know, what's the worst that could happen? And yeah, throughout the race, I did not think once about my Achilles, left or right. I think when you have so much adrenaline and you've got caffeine in your system and the nerves and the excitement and just the whole thing, it blocks out everything. And I remember trying to run a safe race because the race was just chaos. You know, it went slow, then it went fast, and there was carnage everywhere, people going down. I remember thinking to myself at the bell, really get going now. You could collect 3 or 4 girls if you do this last lap right. And I did. I took 2 right before the bell. I was coming down about 300 metres to go. I could see a few more girls that I was ready to take. And as I approached that last water jump, I distinctly remember thinking, okay, really attack this. You know, this is your last water jump. You know that, you know, racism, it's a make or break on the last water jump. And I just, ran at it real hard and pushed off. And it was the minute my foot landed on that slanted track, it was honestly a gunshot. It was just like a pop / gunshot to the heel where I think a lot of people would probably normally be shocked, but I mean, as soon as it happened, I knew exactly what it was. And yeah, I hit the deck and was a bit upset, but.
Oh, Jen.
Yeah. I think the main thing was I knew that everyone was watching, and poor Ryan, I honestly thought about him. I said, he's going to know exactly what just happened because it was something we almost joke about. It's like, I wonder how long my Achilles will last before it goes. But I think the shock was that it was it was my good one. And I went to the medical room straight after and I asked the team doctor, Paul, if he could, you know, call Ryan and just fill him in, tell him I'm okay. And the first thing I said to him on the phone was, can you believe it? My left outlived my right. My right was the Achilles that popped on the last water jump. But, you know, by that point, it didn't matter what Achilles it was. And, yeah, it's just, it was a hard thing to experience.
Oh, Jan, gosh. And I know it's still so raw. It's only a matter of days past. And, I mean, the moment you reach back for your heel, I think a lot of people realise what may have happened, and it wasn't from the TV coverage long after that where I think it was known and they were announcing what had happened. And I mean, Australia's heart was with you and world athletics and further abroad. I mean, I think of athletes and any injury is more of a psychological challenge most of the time than a physical battle. And I just felt like the trauma involved for a running athlete with such an injury, I mean, there's no words for it. It's traumatic, right? Yeah,
I think that's what it is. Like, it's. I was trying to explain it to my family because, you know, they've obviously seen my career unfold, you know, right from day one. But I've had plenty of injuries in my time. I haven't obviously ever been injured at the Olympic Games or even in an event. I've broken my ankle one time in the steeplechase in 2013, and yeah, that was sad at the time. But this was a different experience, I think. You know, when athletes talk about everything that goes into being at the Olympics, and I mean, it's more than just the training. I was even saying to Ryan, like, he when he realised that he wasn't going to make it to the Olympics this year, that was like a hard reality for us to accept. But, you know, there's just so many amazing 1,500-metre male runners right now. He switched his focus to, you know, putting everything into my running now, and it became one of those things where we're no longer two individuals focusing on our career. It was, you know, both of us focusing on mine and getting me to the start line. And he's well aware of my Achilles and what it requires to keep me going. And, you know, like he put in hours of massage and frictioning my Achilles and being in the gym with me and, you know, researching different things to, you know, maybe give me a little pain relief. It's not just the time and effort that an individual athlete puts into getting to the start line. It's your support crew, what everyone's done to get you there, the time they've put in, your loved ones, the family that, you know, are the ones that don't get to see you all year round, and the sacrifices you make. And I think with this one, what hit home so much was, just feeling like, you know, not that you let people down, just that it kind of came to an end and there was no result. But, you know, there's 5 years and more that go into it, and you just, and in no way do I feel like a failure. I know what I've achieved, and I know the athlete I am, but I think it's just, that you got nothing to show. You feel like you kind of sit there and you're like, at the end, it finished with a ruptured Achilles and wheeling off a track, and that's it. So I think this one was hard. And also, you know, I'm well aware that I'm 32 years old, you know, I'm not, you know, 23, you know, with a massive career in front of me. I take every year as serious as I can, because I love what I do and I want to do it forever. But reality is you can't do it forever. So this road is going to be definitely the hardest one I've had. But I think that's why I've found it a little harder to wrap my head around than I have in the past.
Jen, I mean, not having family there as well, of all the this is your third Olympic Games. Tokyo was, I should say, your third Olympic Games, and the one Games where you needed the hugs the most.
Yeah, that sucked.
There's a cruel irony in that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the only one that obviously was disappointed or heartbroken at the Olympics, but I think for the athletes there, that was brutal. Just whether it was a great performance, winning a medal, or getting dragged off the track, you didn't have anyone there. You know, family and friends were all, you know, oceans away. And I think for a lot of athletes, that would have definitely been a difficult reality to face. I just know that when I was sitting there, I just knew that the next time I would be in the arms of someone that I'm truly comfortable with was days, if not weeks, because obviously I was facing the quarantine and I didn't know if Ryan would be able to get home, and that was a hard part for me to kind of really wrap my head around. But I mean, I said it in my interview with Channel 7, and I think I've even said it on social media. I'm really, really grateful for the Athletics Australia medical team, because through all of this, they have just been like, they've acted like my parents. You know, Paul Blackman was in the medical room as soon as I was dragged off the track. He sat with me and, you know, explained the medical process that we're going to go through, but also was there as a caring friend. My physio, Kevin Craigie, sat with me the next day in my room just to, we talked about my foot and what this means, but we also just talked about, you know, what I want to do over the next year and plans to move forward. And I don't reckon athletes are as lucky as me when they say that 100%. They have a good medical team. I genuinely have friends that are my doctors or my physio, and they've all called every day since being in quarantine, and I've really, really been looked after. So although I sit here and still cry about it and feel sad, I consider myself genuinely lucky with the situation I'm in, despite what happened.
And your management started straight away, as you say, in the medical room, Paul Blackman, Kevin Craigie, and the logistics then, Jen, to get back to Australia. without hugs, apart from Paul and Kevin. Singapore, meet Ryan, back to Australia.
Yeah.
Into quarantine, out of quarantine to surgery, because you're now, I think, 2 or 3 days post-surgery at the time of recording.
Yeah.
Quite challenging, I believe.
Yeah, a nightmare. But again, the AOC just stepped up. Like, we've got such a great organisation looking after us. As soon as, obviously, I fell, one of the first texts I sent out was to someone that helps us organise all the logistics in Athletics Australia, Nathan Sims. I texted him and I said, hey, Nathan, as you probably realise, I won't be flying to America to continue my season. I'll need to go home. Can you get this ball rolling? And obviously he responded straight away and he said, yep, it's all being organised. Don't worry about a thing. And I mean, with it, in the next day, I had the AOC not only organising me to get home and get into quarantine and start the process of getting the government to allow me to get surgery, but they'd also jumped on to get Ryan on the next flight home from London, which there were flights that didn't even exist that they found. I mean, I was looking online myself being like, how are we going to get Ryan home? But they had connections with Singapore Airlines and they created a flight that I couldn't find online. They got him on the next flight. We met in Singapore, flew together. And when we landed, we had, an ambulance pick me up, take me straight to the hotel, talk me through the logistics of what the next few days will look like. And I mean, like you said, I'm now day 6 of quarantine. I've had my surgery. I've been extremely well looked after. Ryan's, been here looking after me. It's been as smooth as it possibly could have been. And again, that's in this crazy time that we live in. I've had every single person bend over backwards to make sure that this process was as easy as it could be. And that's, been really, really helpful.
The Prime Minister did mention you in Parliament, Jen, Prime Minister of Australia, that is Scott Morrison. I can't remember his exact words, but he mentioned your fighting, courageous spirit.
Yeah, that was really nice. He compared, my fight with my ruptured Achilles to the fight we're having in Australia with COVID. So, I mean, I'm flattered. And I think that's why I try not to be too sad, because I've had so many messages and people reach out and just say that, although it's traumatic what happened and it's never an athlete's dream to end this way, it's given people motivation in another way, with, not giving up and keeping a positive mindset during adversity. And I do hope that has inspired some people out there that are maybe fighting their own battle. And the messages I'm receiving are definitely along those lines, which is just, making it all that little bit better. I sit in bed all day in quarantine trying to get through them and responding to people and just letting them know that their simple message is definitely helping heal my heart a little bit more.
One benefit of quarantine is it's given you time for all the admin, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of admin.
Oh, my gosh. And you mentioned on that first post with you sitting there in the medical room with your foot in a splint that, your heart and soul needed time to heal. I guess in some ways now you've had surgery, you feel like that process can truly start, I guess. Yeah. It's like day one moving forwards. Yeah,
that was hard, just having a foot, with a detached Achilles, just, sitting here doing nothing. I'm a very goal-oriented person. I like to write it down in front of me what the next few steps are. I mean, I was already on the phone to Kevin Craigie this morning, my physio, about, what my next few weeks will look like and when we need to start beginning rehab. And when I had a foot that hadn't even been worked on yet, it was difficult because I just felt like that was dead time. That was time not moving forward and not bettering myself or healing. So, to have the surgery done now, I already feel like my mind is a little clearer. And again, I said it, I think, in a social media post, but it's less daunting to face now. I'm completely okay with the fact that I have 2 Achilles surgeries lined up. I mean, 1 done, 1 to go. And I know that it's going to take a year or so to be back to where I want to be. But that's not scary or even upsetting anymore. I think just the raw reality of what happened is still what triggers me. But in no way do I, lose sleep at night feeling like poor me, this is the worst thing in the world. I think I've dealt with the emotion of what is to come, but I'm just kind of still dealing with the reality of how it happened and what happened.
Yeah, gosh, and that will obviously be a process and one that involves time, Jen. And I mean, the Haglund surgery, when's the best time you think to do that now?
Well, I wanted that kind of straight away. I'm an all or nothing person. I need to just be wheelchair bound and just have both legs in a cast. But the surgeon has said that, we got to be realistic about this. And with a ruptured Achilles, it is quite an intense surgery to heal that Achilles and not stuff it up. So they've said, let's get that one going, and maybe around the 2 to 3 month mark, when I'm actually getting that foot out of the boot and walking and doing calf raises and strengthening it, that's the time to then go and do the left one, because you're going to need at least one foot to crutch around on and re-strengthen. So, yeah, I think I'll probably about 3 months in, I'll go under the knife again and get this left one sorted. And, then they think that they would actually heal at a pretty similar time. They said that the right one obviously needs a few more months, so it could work out well.
Gosh, Jen, well, I mean, it will be a challenging process, but if I think of athletes that are typified by grit and getting it done mentality, you're certainly in that list. And we all know that whilst it's going to be challenging, we know you're capable of it. As you say, you've got a great support team around you. And I think the world will be celebrating when Jen Gregson's back running those first steps. It'll feel quite magical.
Yeah, I mean, thanks. But I do feel like I'm ready to, show the path to recovery. I've just had so many people message me saying that they're like going through the exact same thing. I mean, people that ruptured their Achilles like days before me or days after me are reaching out and saying, I've literally just done this. So I will try to show my journey on social media, also because it helps me. I like to document things and see how far I've come, because sometimes you can get lost in the moment. But, I believe that in a year's time I'll be looking at, hitting the roads maybe and showing off my form in road running, because, I mean, I love it. And I think that's what I was actually made to do. Ryan calls me a shuffler and says that I'm very efficient. So he thinks that on the road I'll really shine. But I'm excited about the future that could be from now. And, I'm just grateful to even have the opportunity to continue doing what I love.
Jen Gregson, on behalf of the listeners of this show, we certainly wish you all the best. And I know the other sentiments are the national ones. So thank you for your time today, and you rest up and then push hard.
Yeah, I will. Thanks for having me, Brad.
You're listening to this bonus Physical Performance Show episode, Tokyo Games Aussie Legends, featuring Genevieve Gregson, LaCaze and Patrick Tiernan. Support for today's show comes from Precision Hydration. I caught up with Andy Blow, co-founder of Precision Hydration, on the show back on episode 234 for an expert edition around all things hydration science. It was a very popular episode with many people taking a lot from it, including the fact that when it comes to hydration, there is not one size fits all. And now the good folk at Precision Hydration are aiming to do for fueling what they've done for hydration by helping you understand how much carbohydrate you need to ingest to perform at your physical best. Precision Hydration have set up a quick carb calculator to get a fueling recommendation, and off the back of that, you can book a free one-to-one video consultation with the team to refine your hydration and fueling strategy for your next race. Once you know your numbers, you can use the new Precision Fuel 30 gels and Precision Fuel 30 drink mixes to hit them. Each product contains 30 grams of carbohydrate per serving to make it easier for you to keep track of your intake and ensure you're getting enough fuel in to perform at your best during training sessions and races. As a listener of the show, receive 15% off your first order of Precision Hydration electrolytes or the new Precision Fuel range by using the code TPPS at the checkout at precisionhydration.com. Support for today's show also comes from our upcoming live stream event featuring UK-based sports dietitian and author Rinny McGregor, Fueling the Endurance Athlete. It's set for September the 4th, 3 to 6 p.m, Australian Eastern Standard Time. If you cannot make that time zone, don't despair. We will be making a post-event recording available to all registrants. Tickets are just $49 per person, available over at pogophysio.com.au/Rinny McGregor live stream. And of course, support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultations. If you are an endurance athlete, runner, triathlete, struggling with bone, tendon, or joint-related concerns, our 45-minute online telehealth consultations can serve as effective means to get you back to your physical best. To schedule your 45-minute online consultation, jump over to pogophysio.com.au/telehealth. For now, let's jump back with this Tokyo Athletics Aussie Legends bonus episode featuring Genevieve Gregson and Patrick Tiernan. Pat Tiernan, it has been over 240 weeks since you last or first featured on the Physical Performance Show, episode 41, in fact. So welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, no, it's been a while between drinks for us, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, at the moment, you're sitting there a few days into quarantine at the Stanford Plaza in Brisbane, overlooking the beautiful Brisbane River off the back of your Tokyo campaign. But just quickly bringing everyone up to speed, I mean, over the last 4 years, it's been, aside from Tokyo, which we'll of course touch on today, it's been quite the roller coaster of years for you, hasn't it? From setting the Australian 10,000 metre record, 27.22 in December of 2020, right through to the Com Games, 10,000 metre DQ and everything in between.
Yeah, mate, it's been, I feel like the 10K has been a bit of a love-hate relationship between us at the moment. I was counting it out the other day, and I think about a little over half of them have gone sort of how I wanted them to, and the other half have not agreed with me. So, you know, it's definitely frustrating, but I think it's part of, being part of the process for me, just trying to figure out the event. I'll still come away and, I've had a lot of people sort of ask me when I'm moving to the marathon and all that, but, I still think I have so much to give in the event, and I haven't got it right yet, which is, I kind of see that more as exciting for me, because I think I've run some really good ones, and to think that it still hasn't properly clicked is like, that's really encouraging for me that I can do something with it.
The thrill of the chase, and of course we'll talk about Tokyo. On the Com Games 2018, I was in the stands watching your race. It was very exciting to see you going around. But yeah, what happened on that evening or afternoon? I can't recall what time of day that one was. I think it was late afternoon, maybe, from memory.
Look, mate, to be honest with you, I came into, was coming off at 2017. That went really well for me right up until World Championships 10K. I actually had a bit of a similar episode there where I just kind of popped, and we had sort of explanations for that, where I got sick of the training camp and came into it, like the training camp leading into the championship, and just wasn't well for that one race. But no, I think this one, I mean, Com Games, I just, I was training well, but I just didn't have things right in my personal life. And I think that was kind of overflowing into my running and into that aspect of things. And, I can say I got, a little beat up a month out, which, it happens to everyone, but I didn't handle it probably as well as I should have. And so then when it came to the actual 10K, I just don't think I was in shape. I came in optimistic. It's a home championship. You want to do well. So just a case of going a little too hard too early for the sort of shape I was in. And yeah, I think the DQ was, I was just out of it and stepped on the inside of the track a few times. So, it's one of those things that, it honestly probably looks better that I got DQ'd, because people won't actually know where I finished up there. So. But yeah, so it's, but no, that was just, those two instances were sort of very clear and whatnot. So they were kind of a little easier for me to wrap my head around and move on from. It took a while. Like, I think the rest of 2018 definitely wasn't my year. But like I said, I had a few things going on personally, and I made sure I sorted those out first. And then, took a bit of a breather at the end of the 2018 season and came out in 2019 all guns blazing, which was, started off really well.
Fast forward then to 2020, set an Australian 10,000 metre record. Things are looking good for going into Tokyo 2021. Pat, your preparation, you were happy with your preparation leading into Tokyo. Obviously, there was heat acclimation work.
Yeah. I mean, we really thought we ticked all the boxes. I was in really good shape, had some good lead-up races. The last race I did before Tokyo didn't go exactly as we planned, but I still wasn't disheartened by it. I think it was, that was another thing where we were able to sort of put our finger on what went wrong there, but it wasn't anything really drastic. So I was confident. I thought we'd done really well with our preparation. We'd been doing a few runs a week in a heat chamber that was getting up to north of 42 degrees Celsius. So things were going well. We went to Houston the week before I left for Tokyo to kind of get a similar sort of climate in, which it was pretty. After being in Tokyo, it was very similar. We tried different cooling techniques to bring my body temperature down and stuff. I felt really prepared going into Tokyo. But, I think it was just, looking back on it, I think it was just a situation of we kind of underestimated the effort I'd be putting myself through in that 10K and what sort of effect that would have on me. And, also not really taking into account that I am just a bigger body for my event. Usually people doing my event are closer to 60 kilos and I'm up towards 67, 68 and 6'2". So, maybe there's things there that we need to take to a bit more of an extreme. But so it was definitely, frustrating coming out of it, knowing that we'd done a lot more than I'd done previously. But, that's all part of the sport. You sort of make mistakes and you learn from them, and that's definitely something that we'll be paying very close attention to in the coming months.
I mean, with 9,500 metres in, with 9,850 metres in, really, from the appearances of the television coverage, you were there. You were looking at a front pack finish, top 10 finish, Australian 10,000 metre Olympic final as an Australian. Incredible run. You were right there. Yep. When did you start to know that you were in trouble? Did it happen quite quickly, or were you feeling a little bit off before that point, the first collapse?
I mean, realistically, the penultimate lap felt like it was going to be my last lap. I kind of got the feelings you get when you're finishing a race, like your legs start to get a little lactic, your shoulders start to tense up a bit, and you're really focusing on trying to relax everything to keep your leg turnover going. So I kind of knew that in the back of my head, but, part of you thinks, it's meant to be hard. Like, it's the Olympic 10K final. You're going to be working bloody hard to keep up with these blokes. So it was one of those things where I thought, I'm lactic, but I can still, maybe they'll just, get away from me in the last lap. But it never sort of crossed my mind that I was going to be absolutely spent. And I think that really started to kick in sort of right as we approached the bell. I could just start to feel myself losing a little bit of momentum. And, I'm not even thinking in my head that it was going to be as drastic as it was, but I'm thinking then, like, okay, I got to, maybe just focus on standing tall and, like, finishing this race. And then I got to about 250 metres to go, I think, and I felt myself starting to lean forward, and I thought, oh shit, I'm gonna fall here if I don't try and do something. And so I was trying. All these thoughts are going through my head, like, all right, maybe just like stop and stand up, or like just walk a little bit. But it had got to the point where I was so far forward in how I was running that I was like, I'm falling over. It's going to happen at some point, and I'm trying to stay up. And so I collapsed with about 180 metres to go. And I thought, okay, I'll just jog it in now. And stood up to jog and fell over immediately again. And that's when when I fell over immediately again, that's when I thought, I'm in real trouble just to get to the finish here. So, yes, I got up, was a little more aware the second time I got up and started sort of jogging. And then I think I got to about 80 or 70 metres to go down the home straight, and just thoughts are going through my head. I'm like, this can't be happening again. It can't be happening here. And I'm just like, I'm trying to stand up. I'm trying to walk a little bit when I feel myself going. And I think the last time I fell, I honestly wasn't moving very quick. And I know I wasn't moving quick at all that last lap, but I was probably jogging on the spot when I fell over the last time. And it was just, my body was just done. It was just giving out on me everywhere. So to be honest with you, I'm not really sure how I got across the line. I knew I crossed the line, and first thing I saw was the wheelchair, and I thought, that's where I'm going now. I got to sit down. It was tough. I think that last lap was, trying to get yourself up and finish, but also realising what's happening. To realise how close I'd got to potentially having the best race of my career. It was kind of raw and hard to deal with. That last lap was, obviously physically very challenging, but also mentally and emotionally just trying to wrap my head around what was happening was really difficult.
I mean, those splits for the last 800, I believe, was 1:53, and that final 400, I believe, they were closing around 53 seconds.
Yeah.
So it was on, and you were there. And then, Pat, you're into the wheelchair, and then straight off, obviously, for medical assistance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I was under the stadium for the better part of 35, 40 minutes. It could be longer, it could be shorter. I'm really not sure. But, it was a lot. Initially, I was, my breathing was very quick. I think my body temperature was up around 41 degrees Celsius. So our team doctor was saying another, less than half a degree more, and it would have been taking me to the hospital for fear of heat stroke. But so I think they rushed me off and they put me on a stretcher, and I was just really panicked for probably the better part of 10, 15 minutes, probably the better part of 20 minutes, honestly. One, because of, so you're on the track 1 second, and then all of a sudden you've got oxygen mask on your face, and you're lying down, you're getting your body temperature checked, and, they were doing it the most accurate way possible. The other thing was, it's, you're in Japan, so there's 8 or 9 people speaking Japanese around you, which just like when you're already panicked and then you can't understand anything that's being said around you, it's really kind of just overwhelming in that sense. So, I'd say I was just very panicked the first 15, 20 minutes. They were trying to cool me down by putting like ice towels all over my body, keeping my head down and whatnot. And then I think after we got through that, and my body temperature started to come down and my breathing was a bit more controlled, that's when it kind of really started to set in what had happened to me. It was hard. I was, very, very emotional, fighting back some tears through that point, because you think it's been 5 years that you've been dreaming about this day, and to have it end like that. I wouldn't say it was a failure. I don't like saying things are a failure, because I achieved the race plan for 9.5K. My body just gave out on me. So I guess that was kind of just very frustrating and upsetting to me, was that, 5 years later and my body just didn't quite have what I wanted it to have. Also realising that family and friends weren't there. Like, the first thing I wanted to do was see my fiancée, but she's over in America, and for me, as far as visas were concerned, I knew I wouldn't be seeing her for at least 3 weeks or 4 weeks after that race. It was just a lot to process at once. The medical staff there and the Australian medical staff were fantastic throughout it all. I mean, Paul Blackman, our team doctor, is just an absolute legend. He was there for me every step of the way and making sure I was okay. He made sure my fiance was informed, my family was informed that I was doing well. And then the Japanese medical staff that were there, once I got my wits about me, I was very, very thankful and appreciative for what they were doing. And, they really made sure I was in a healthy state before I left the stadium there, and it took a while. So, it was a lot. Definitely the most I've been through after a race as far as that goes. We got through it, and standing upright, walking around tall now. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, Pat, geez, the panic you mentioned, was that panic as in your mind's racing about your long-term health and performance potential, or just the panic of that here and now? Am I going to be okay?
I think it was just the here and now. And I don't even think it was like, am I going to be okay? It was just, I had no clue what was happening. I knew that I'd fallen. I knew that, I wasn't in a great way. But at the same time, initially I'm thinking, what's the big deal? I just overexerted a little bit. I can walk off, I'll be fine. But it was just kind of a lot of panic in the sense of like, this is new territory for me. I haven't been, whisked off in a stretcher and then had all this sort of medical stuff done to me post race before, and so I knew I was going to be okay. There was never any doubt about that, but it was just more so the concept of I had no clue what was happening and why they were doing it. Big picture, I knew why they were doing it. I mean, I collapsed 3 times. That's why they're doing it, but it was just I couldn't really ask what they were checking for. Paul was doing his best to communicate with me everything that was going on. It was just a lot of confusion, I would say, more so for that period of time.
And Pat, I mean, you won the hearts of Australia. There's other ways to do it, and I know you would have preferred the alternative. but I mean, between Patrick Tiernan, Pat Tiernan, and Paddy Mills, Pat really, the Pats brought a lot to the games for the Australian team. I know in speaking in the past, Pat, with Johnny Brownlee, 3 times Olympic medalist in triathlon, he had his episodes of heat illness, quite the well-documented collapsing episode where his brother Alistair dragged him across the line in the grand final in Cozumel, Mexico. And I know Johnny spoke about it as initially he was really embarrassed. That was his year to win the world title, and he was, by his own words, embarrassed that he was getting all this attention for something that he didn't feel really was attention worthy. And then it shifted to some sense of acceptance, and now it's just part of the story. And I know Johnny worked over the years through a lot of self-doubt in racing in the heat to get back to be able to, show himself that he had what it was required to compete with the best in the world in hot conditions. I think I read maybe one of your captions, or it might have been a media story, that initially you felt a sense of embarrassment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, it comes back to that whole, you've been waiting for this moment for 5 years. It's not, the finish of that race was not a good reflection of the work I've put into it. And I think to have it turn out the way that it did was, for me, embarrassing. Looking back on it now, it's not, I don't find it embarrassing looking back on that race and that people saw that. That's not necessarily the case at all. For me, it's more just straight away it was like, damn, that's 5 years of work, and that's kind of what you've put out there for it. And initially I did see it as embarrassing for myself. But I think, like you said, you put it well, it's more about acceptance of what it was, and being able to view it in a slightly different way. And for me, it was, I executed my race plan perfectly for 95% of that race, which, is a big step up for me. I think I competed with those blokes. That was the first time I think I've really been in a major championship race and competed for a top spot successfully for that amount of time. So, those are the sort of things I'm trying to take away from it. And, obviously there's a lot of some things we'll tweak training wise and all of that. But, looking back on it, I wouldn't really change anything training wise. We did our research. We prepared as best as we thought we could at the time. And, I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of my team for the way we approached this season and everything we did in the build-up. And, yeah, it turned out pretty poorly when you look at the results or if you look at it on paper. But I think there's a lot more that goes in behind the scenes that I'm really proud of this year, and I know my team behind me is aware of all of that, and they're really proud of me for that as well. So, yeah, it's a shame that race, when people think back on it, they'll only think of the last 100 metres. But, for me, there's a lot more to it. And the good thing is that last 100 metres hasn't been seen in a negative light. So as far as I'm concerned right now, any sort of positive, if people are seeing it in some sort of positive light, that's okay with me. But I think the main thing is that what I'm taking away from it, and I'm definitely taking away some good positive reinforcement.
Yeah, I think any athlete of any level, recreational, recreationally competitive, elite, sub-elite, the positives you take out of observing a finish like that are just what the body's capable of. It is moving, it is inspiring, and it shows absolute grit and determination and that will of the body just to get there, and the will of the mind to override a body that's wanting to do the opposite. A lot of people, Pat, would be, me included, very happy with a 28:35, 10,000 metres when he jogged on the spot for a while.
Yeah. There's always that to take away from it as well, I guess.
And the other competitors, I'm sure they've been quite supportive as well from the race.
Yeah, no, I've seen a few of them afterwards, and they're all very all checking in to make sure I'm okay. And it's one of those things where they understand, like, and it's a choice you make. Like, if you, like, their body was probably at the same point mine was at a stage in the race, and they recognised it and, ended up having the best finish they could that day. And mine did not, and it didn't have the best finish it could that day. But, when it comes down to it, it's a matter of, for me, what your priorities are there. And for me, my priority on that day in particular was to just hang on to the lead pack as long as I could. And, maybe that's something that I need to look into going forward, to, try and reevaluate where my head, like, maybe try and sink my body and head up a little more in those latter stages of the races, to try and get the most out of myself from a performance standpoint. But on that day, that was the race plan. That was my goal going into the race, and I executed until my body would let me. So always more work to do, but we're definitely taking a lot of things away from this one.
Yeah. Well said, Pat. And obviously the 5,000 metres was then ruled out for you. Was that obviously disappointing, but also understandable given the circumstance for your long-term health and performance?
Yeah, disappointing. I mean, I did get the, physical all clear, but I could kind of sense there was a little bit of concern in that tick that I got, and I think mentally I'd seen the finish of that race a few too many times. And that whole process after the race really sort of, that was something that I think I'm still kind of trying to process a bit. So, yeah, for me, I wasn't ready to step back out there yet. I knew I needed to process this properly and actually come to terms with what had happened and realise that there's work that I need to do on it. And I think for me, the sooner I could start that process, the sooner I could start to look towards what was next. So it just wasn't, something that was in the best interest of my health. I think, and you know, in the same sense, if I got in the same situation in that 5K, I guarantee I would have done the exact same thing. You know, I would have tried to hang on as long as I could, and you know, the potential for the same thing to happen was there, and that's, you know, that was kind of scary for me. So it you know, it just wasn't something that I was fully prepared to do, and definitely frustrating and a tough decision to make, because, you know, as an athlete, you go to the Olympics to compete and you go there to do well. So, you know, to have to make the call not to race on the biggest stage, the one you've been waiting for a while, was definitely very challenging, and one I went back and forth about for a lot. But yeah, in the end, I know it was the right decision for me, and I'll you know, I'll come to terms with that in my own time.
I like what you said, that the decision to not race was just one day closer to getting things right and getting back out there. What is next now, Pat? What are you looking towards now? Com Games 2022. What else? World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now I'm not really trying to think about what's next race wise. I'm you know, looking forward to getting out of quarantine, seeing my family for a little, and then ultimately getting back to the States and seeing my fiance and dog back there. So we'll spend a bit of time together and, you know, start the base period again, but just really focus on the basics there. Yeah, championship wise, it's, you know, I got a lot going on next year. We've got World Champs and Com Games, but I'm also trying to get married for the third time next year. So our wedding's been postponed already twice already due to COVID. So next year's meant to be our wedding date. So you know, there's a lot of things going on. So definitely some thinking to do. World Champs is definitely a priority for me. That's in being in Eugene. That's where I live now. So I'd love to, you know, obviously love to get back out there and get that 10K right. So yeah, so that's, I think, long-term goal. That's where it's at. But for right now, I'm just, you know, focusing on getting myself right and sorting out the little things that will help solve the question of that last 500 metres. So
more testing. There'll be some testing to come.
I would say so. Yeah, we haven't really mapped out a full plan there. I think for the moment, our priority's sort of been me, you know, figuring out what's going on up top in those sort of situations. So I've been doing some work with the Athletics, not Athletics Australia, with Jonah Oliver. He's the sports psych who we had over in Tokyo. So it's been great speaking with him and just, you know, trying to figure out what's been going on in that regard. So that's kind of what my priority is while I'm in here. And then once I get back to Oregon, I'm sure we'll have a couple of physical tests we'll run. But you know, I think physically we have a decent idea of what's going on. I just wasn't where I thought I was on that day, or we just didn't get the cooling methods right for the day. So I think that's probably a little more simple than we think. But yeah, definitely figuring out what my mindset is going into those races is one that I have to be a bit more aware of.
Pat Tiernan, as mentioned before, you really did win the hearts of the nation, and there's nothing as moving and as inspiring as seeing someone give their all, whether that's the result the athlete wanted on the day or not. In many ways, it is somewhat more moving and gripping when things don't go well, but people push through that to just across that finish line. So I know on behalf of all Australia, we're proud of you, and thank you for your contribution to the Physical Performance Show again. And this story has not ended. More to follow.
That's it. I'm sure we'll be having another chat, hopefully less than 240 weeks away. But we'll have a good story to come soon enough. I'm sure of that.
There will be. Absolutely. Thanks again, Pat.
Thanks, Brad.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and a bonus one at that. Now, if you enjoyed it, which I know you'll have taken a lot from it, with Jen Gregson and Patrick Tiernan so honestly sharing, then please let both Jen and Pat know what it was that you took from their openness and their sharings. You'll find Jen over on Instagram, Jen_LaCaze, and Pat, Tiernan_Pat. And consider a podsy, that's a screenshot of the episode that you're enjoying and tagging in the show at Physical Performance Show. And if possible, tag in Pat and Jen so they know you've taken something from their share-ins. And I know we all wish Jen the very best for her Achilles tendon recovery, and also Pat as he presses forwards towards his best performances, which is still to come. As always, a massive thank you to the great folk who make this show possible week in, week out, including bonus episodes like this, which naturally doubles the workload in a given week. Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, Matthew Olding on all things show graphic design, and Daryl Misson on all things show audio engineering. Another huge thanks to today's show sponsor, Precision Hydration. Your support makes this show possible. Don't forget to check out the Precision Fuel range and use the code TPPS for 15% off your first order of electrolytes or the all-new Precision Fuel range, including the Precision Fuel 30 gels and the Precision Fuel 30 drink mixes. Jump over to precisionhydration.com and whilst there, take the quick carb calculator to calculate the ingestion of carbohydrates required for your long and hard training sessions and also races. A massive thanks to the patrons of this show. If you'd like to support the show's production, you can do so from just $5 per month over at Patreon. Just search The Physical Performance Show, and in return we'll grant you access to our back catalogue of live stream events, including 2020's very popular Polarised Training live stream with Dr. Stephen Seiler and our Optimising Recovery live stream with Dr. Shona Halson. Of course, upcoming we have Rinny McGregor, UK-based dietitian and author on all things fueling the endurance athlete in just a matter of weeks. So jump over to Patreon, search The Physical Performance Show, and there you can pledge your support. Now, coming up later in the week on The Physical Performance Show, for our usual Thursday evening release, we've pushed back our expert edition around all things calculating your carbohydrate ingestion numbers with Andy Blow this week to bring you another hotel quarantine interview, this time with Australian swimming great Kyle Chalmers, who we caught up with as he sat in the Northern Territory reflecting on his Tokyo Olympic Games, silver medal in the 100 metre freestyle and bronze medal in the 4x100 metre freestyle relay. Kyle shares openly around his swimming journey to date, including, as always, the highs, lows and learnings. So be sure to be tuning in later in the week for Kyle Chalmers, OAM. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been The Physical Performance Show.